Hello and welcome to the Surgical Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Haidar Al-Hakim, the Third Eye Doctor. Pull up a chair and get ready for some candid and uncompromising discussion with experts, innovators, agitators, and influential people from every corner of health and well-being. From inside the hospital to at home in the kitchen, we're leaving no stone unturned in our quest to uncover the secrets of healthier, happier, more successful, and less stressful lives. Thank you so much for joining us, and without further ado, let's meet this episode's guest. Hello Bhasha, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Congratulations. I mean, I don't know what to congratulate you on, being Miss England 2019 or being Dr. Bhasha.
They both happen so close to each other in my life. I sometimes can't tell the difference myself. But I've worked for 5 years for becoming a doctor. So I think that's always going to be something I gravitate more towards. But yes, Miss England is a great honour and pride as well.
So, I know you're into balance, but come on, which one is, really you fancy more?
Well, I'm quite lucky in that respect because my Miss England journey has allowed me to be both and actually be a better version of the doctor I wanted to be. With the 10 hours, 9 hours I work in the NHS, I am doing one half of the role as a doctor, which is curing and being a part of the curing process of people who are ill. But what I'm even more lucky to be is part of the prevention process, which is what I'm doing as part of Miss England. My campaign this year is to prevent, do a prevention campaign for diabetes and obesity. So I'm really proud that actually Miss England allows me to do this.
And, we know that prevention is powerful and prevention covers a much greater scope of work than curing, and it's a lot cheaper as well. So I think probably your scope in Miss England and hopefully Miss World this year, which is in December, I think.
Yes.
Maybe that can take over a lot more.
Absolutely. I just think that it's more fun. It's so much more fun than dishing out medications. I'm not saying that medications don't have a place in society, because they absolutely do. They are what's enabling people to carry on and actually be functional in society. But at the same time, prevention, my campaign is all about making it more accessible, more fun, and making it more targeted at different audiences. If I start talking facts and medical jargon at, 12-year-olds, they're not going to be listening. And that's been one of the most fun parts of my campaign, which is trying to target my campaign and trying to make it more catered to different age groups. Doing these fun activities, trying to be creative. And I am a creative, so it's been much more fun to, do this prevention campaign, I'd say.
And what's been the most fun thing that you've done in this prevention campaign?
So far, I'm still in the planning process. Schools have just opened yesterday. I'm in the conversation with schools. I've got a lot of plans in terms of getting a conversation started between young people and someone living with diabetes. I've had my own charity for many years now, which is called the Generation Bridge Project, which aims to get the older generation and the younger generation together. And I thought, why not merge my two, campaigns essentially in my Miss England journey? And I honestly thought that people don't want to, make a change in their life until something happens to their grandparent, their father, a family member. And that's purely because they haven't seen anything happen. They haven't been exposed. And a lot of the things that I am exposed to in my medical field, that has actually made a lot of change in my own lifestyle. And I thought, why should it be just, restricted to people in the medical field? Why shouldn't we get that conversation started, integrate populations? And why do we always try to, mollycoddle our children? Children are very, very smart. They're actually very decisive as well. And we really need to give that power back to them and get them to make their own decisions by seeing and exposure. And that's what I'm trying to do. To answer your question about what's been the most fun, we did a little game at the local gym. It was to raise money, and we did beat diabetes, and we got people to do a fitness test and do a how many ball slams can you do in 1 minute. It was really fun to film and do this whole thing. We also managed to raise a little bit of money.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely wonderful, intergenerational cooperation, dialogue, interaction, and it's very therapeutic on both sides as well.
My experience of what I've seen of people living with diabetic, foot ulcers or, limb amputations is they are discarded. And that is the truth about the elderly generation. And, I'm sure they would love to impart their knowledge about what their life is really like, what decisions they would change about their life if they were younger, and there's no better way to get that conversation going rather than me as a doctor or any other doctor trying to, tell people what to do. Get them talking and let someone living with it, experiencing it, let them give their own input on it. And I think that's what I really want to achieve out of this 1 year as Miss England.
And did you have a personal experience with diabetes and, that aspect of disease?
So being South Asian, I am fully aware of my risks. And there was a time in medical school where I really was very scared that, I might have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And that was purely because so many people from my side, my part of the country in India, my people my age, they were being detected with it. And also my own father has type 2 diabetes. My granddad got diagnosed with pre-diabetes, but he never let it progress. My father, he was overweight, and for him, he nearly lost his vision. So I was very aware that, gosh, it could be happening to me, and I wouldn't have much control over it. Once you have something like PCOS, it's very difficult to reverse it, genetic reasons and stuff. And I think I'm not that I'm saying that scaremongering is a good thing, but sometimes fear is better to get people to change rather than just education, just pure, facts and figures. When people really are scared of their risks, then they do change that. And I want to get those facts, and not just the facts, but get them to be aware of their risk, especially South Asians and young people. And I'm doing that now as part of, Diabetes UK.
And is there a positive reaction to you or a negative reaction to you, given that you're Miss England from the Asian community? What's your experience of that?
I think, my experience of being South Asian is that South Asians are very passionate. They are very passionate. They've always watched films, Bollywood films, and they do sort of look at beauty queens in a different light, and so I've been quite lucky that the reaction's been very positive. And I think it's always also been met with a level of surprise when I have told them that I'm a doctor as well, which is what I wanted to achieve out of this, to get the approval from both sides. I didn't want parents to say, oh, don't be like her because she's just a beauty queen, she's just an airhead. I wanted parents to be like, well, look, she's educated as well. And I want young people to look at this as well. And because, the truth is that there isn't that many role models out there in the media who are making a difference in real life. Most young people look up to film stars, and they want to become film stars and models and stuff. And the doctor's job is not glamorous necessarily. but it's good to have positive role models, and I wish I had a positive role model like that, who I could be like, oh, well, hold on a minute, she's actually making a difference, but she's not looking like the stereotypical geeky person, with glasses. And hey, I wear glasses, but so yeah, I want to do that as well.
And who are I mean, you must have had role models growing up.
My teachers. This was a question in my Miss England finals, and I believe this was the winning question for me. And I didn't have a moment of second thoughts about this. It's definitely my teachers, because that's where I found true solace, because I was an immigrant, and there was a lot of, from my side of the family, we moved around schools a lot. I was always a new kid, and there was lots of cultural barriers and things like that. But I never faced that discrimination from teachers, and they always encouraged me and inspired me to push myself more. And the takeaway message that actually made me want to become a doctor was the altruism, the fact that they were willing to give up their time, stay after school to help us out, and really push us. And they had the ambitions for us, for me, before I had ambitions of my own, And I can't thank them enough for giving me that vision and that dream. They saw things in me before I did, and yeah, it makes me emotional thinking about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's very selfless acts, which is what we remember in our lives, really. It's these sort of selfless acts from people that we don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always said this, that when I was leaving school, I saw that, my teacher, I finally noticed, sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional about this, that I finally noticed that I was actually taller than my teacher. And I just saw them in a different light. And I just saw them as so much older and frailer. Not to say that they're old, of course not. They're glamorous as ever. But, and their whole life goes in improving others' lives, and making the pillars of society, essentially. So yes, I dedicate my whole journey to my teachers.
And they don't get a good rap as well. They don't get enough credit, I think, in society.
They don't, but I always wanted to teach, and in being a medic as well, you do get to teach. I think the takeaway for them, which you can see, is that the impact that they make, and when they see their students do well, my teachers, I'm still in touch with them, and they're so happy with my journey. And I think in that way, I'm making them proud and giving back to them by constantly referring to them, and also reminding myself as well how much of a role they had in my life. And I constantly try to tell them that myself, and hopefully that's some compensation for all the hard work they do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, it's definitely the best compensation is internal compensation rather than the sort of monetary or sort of external compensation. Did you find that the teachers in medical school were just as inspirational?
There were some, definitely. I found clinicians definitely to be better teachers than some of the academics, which is a given. Doctors, they are teachers in a sense, not just for medical students, but the general population as well. And for that, they have to have that good communication skills. And I always wanted to sustain that in myself as well, to always be, grounded and have that commonality in me, so that I could always be at par with my patients and educate them, So we are teachers, primarily, actually. And if we're good enough teachers as doctors, then we don't need to be good doctors, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, education is powerful. I see a lot of patients, and most of the time I'm actually educating them rather than so-called treating them.
That's exactly what I mean, yes, yeah.
And it's quite interesting because you sound quite positive about going through medical school, which me as a senior doctor, we've heard lots of, negative news about how difficult it is in medical school. and we're probably culpable of sort of spreading some some negativity in the medical world, saying how difficult it is. So, what's your view of having been through current medical education? How has that journey been?
Very difficult. I wouldn't say at all that it's for everybody and it's not easy. But what I found was, everyone's got their own climb, and everyone at their own level is working very hard against their own circumstances. So it's not fair to say that, oh, ours is the most difficult, And once I got that out of my system, that, oh my God, this is such a difficult course, and I just took it as a journey that I'm going on, it became much easier. And I decided to not, someone told me, like, stop trying to swim against the tide. There are times where you just need to just flow with the tide and see where it takes you. It wasn't easy for me at all with medical school, especially because it can be as you said in our last conversation, it can be quite lonely, and I think it was particularly lonely for myself because I was leading a dual life. I was a model all the way through medical school, and I also wasn't from the wealthy background that a lot of people in medical school were. For me, my family was very important. I didn't drink. There was a lot of things that made me different, and I didn't find myself fit into any one particular box. So what I decided instead was, to focus on, for me, the point that changed everything for me was when clinical phase started, and I could start actually being in the wards, being around patients, because I realized that reminded me every time why I wanted to be a doctor. And I just didn't want to think about the reasons why all these other forces were making me feel that I shouldn't be one, just tried to focus on the good, and also having that balance, having that escape. For me, that was the modeling and all the other things that I did on the other side. But I'm glad that I didn't give one up for the other.
Yeah, and this sense of isolation is very powerful and is very damaging. Are there any sort of organizations or groups that you would advise people to sort of look into? Or, they are out there. It is a matter of changing that mindset, isn't it? That you're not alone.
Absolutely. Me personally, I didn't really get a chance to, go out to get help in that way. I did go through the NHS process and get a counselling and CBT therapy for a short time, but help is out there. I always say that if you're willing to acknowledge that you need help, that's the first point of call before you can actually allow for change to happen. So it's important to acknowledge that something's wrong, that you're not being yourself, or you're feeling lonely. Just to acknowledge that you're also not Superman, and we're all as susceptible to mental health problems, and actually we need to make that change, and we need to be the person that to do it. I think for a long time I had the mentality that I needed someone else to do it for me, someone else to point it out, someone else to give me sympathy. But no, I realized at one point that actually, to be functional, to achieve the things I want to in life, I need to help myself, and I need to make that change happen. I need to make that decision, make that choice, and just go ahead and do it. So I just said, forget it. I'm not going to, keep sort of keeping, refusing help. Go out there and actually get it, and forget about all these other factors that are making me feel okay. I don't know, I don't want to get CBT because then I'm definitely going to be labeled as someone with mental health. Just taking the prejudice away from it. Yeah.
And given that you've just started your journey in the medical world, obviously you're a positive lady. What's going on in your head? How are you thinking about this? What are your plans?
What surprised me the most was how much of a team effort being a doctor really is, being working in the NHS is, And I would like to tell people out there that if you're going into it thinking you alone are going to make a difference, you're going to feel pretty bad about it all the way through. The point is that, it's a multidisciplinary team. I'm not just name dropping here. It is true. And to make best use of it as well, because actually I felt that all my knowledge, everything I knew about medicine went out the door as soon as I started on the wards, because there's all these new policies and like trust policies and all these things. And the nurses, they all know so much more. They just can't put signatures to things. That's it. So I always say to the nurses in my ward, I'll sign wherever you tell me to. Because they do know. And actually, we really should acknowledge that. And I've been really lucky because the consultants in my ward have been so kind. They haven't been at all in any way, the stereotypical, dictatorship kind of mentality. And it's those little things that make all the difference, For me, I think I was so lucky that I got that. I'm in the busiest ward in the hospital. So yes, of course, I was very lamentful to start off with. I was like, why am I in this ward? This is the busiest ward. We've got so many patients. We're always understaffed. Our ward is always understaffed. But, it's all about a team. And I always say, the worst and worst of things can be overcome if you've got great company. And I do feel that.
Yeah, and that's a really positive message, that it is about teamwork, and the support is there. You just have to allow yourself to work and to embrace that sort of team mentality.
Because it's not easy at all. It's not easy. It's hard work. It's laborious. I would use that word, laborious. Like, it feels like I'm less of a doctor and more of, I don't know, I don't know what I'd compare it to, but it's hard work, definitely. But you just got to look at every day as a new chapter, as a new feat, and this new challenge that you have to overcome. We have to finish on time, guys. Let's do this. And every day before I leave, I say, well done, team, because it literally feels like that. It feels like, whew, it's done. It's over. We're finished now. And, I'm getting quite loud about this, but it feels like that. But it feels great when you feel that, everyone's done it together.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting because on the flip side, in Miss England, it's all about you. It's not about teamwork.
That's where people are wrong, because even during Miss England, leading up to the pageant, you're always thinking, oh, that person's my competition, that person's not good, da-da-da-da. But on the day and the actual finals that we had, we were all leaning on each other. And if we didn't, then we would have crumbled. Because, my roommate, I was confiding in her constantly, and we were both having a little gossip or a little bitch, as you have to, because it's just everyone's so high octane, everyone's so on edge, and, our anxiety levels are through the roof. Everyone's in it to win it, obviously. But, when you acknowledge that everyone's in the same boat, everyone actually ends up really being helpful and loving towards each other. Of course, there are people that you're not going to fully get on with, but there's definitely more people you're going to get on with in that scenario, purely because of going through a similar, a shared experience. And I always, in all the pageants that I've done so far, I always come up with really good friends. I'm really lucky that way.
And coming up to the Miss World, who are your competitors? Who are you sort of keeping an eye out on, or that's not your mentality?
Oh, as a competitor myself, I am fully aware of who are my competitors, but I like to keep that a secret. But if you would like to find out, you can look at the leaderboards yourself. We're quite head-to-head in the top 4, top 5s. The top 10s especially, the numbers keep sort of changing. Again, anything can change in the actual pageant. because it does, sometimes someone from, predictions of top 20 or even top 50 can come up really quite high. It really depends on your performance, and so much changes based on circumstances around the actual pageant and what happens to people on the day and things like that. But yes, if you're keen or interested, then yeah, have a look at the leaderboards, and you'll know.
Yeah, well, I think you'll be a good diplomat as well.
Okay, I like to say I'm very much a foot in mouth person, so I'm not sure diplomat's the right word. As soon as my guard drops, I'm very much a very awkward foot in mouth person. That's who I actually am.
Yeah, I understand that. And do you like chocolate?
Do I like I love chocolate. Absolutely love chocolate. Oh gosh, no. We shan't talk about chocolate because I'm currently trying to intermittent fast and I don't eat until 1 o'clock today, so we shan't talk about that.
And what sort of milk? White, dark?
Milk, obviously milk. Everything's better mixed. Aha, see what I did there?
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, dark, you can feel that sort of healthiness in it.
No, but it tastes horrendous. Ugh.
Well, that's the purpose, isn't it?
No, but why would you eat something and why would you eat it in its worst form? No.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but anyway, I mean, the thing with milk is sort of once you start, you can't stop.
That's true. That's what I mean. Yeah. I always like it with a little bit of texture in it as well. Now I'm thinking about food. Yeah. With a bit of biscuits, a bit of, caramel and things like that. I like a good mixture. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I mean, it's been absolutely excellent. Really interesting insights. What's your advice to young ladies out there who are interested in, or who are aspiring glamour queens?
Glamour queens. Always have something else that's going for you. Always prioritize something like education or a skill, because the glamour industry, in my experience of it can be temperamental, and beauty is only skin deep, unfortunately, and so are fillers, skin deep. Anyone can become very glamorous instantaneously over a couple of courses of Botox and fillers. It's personal choice if they want to do that, but just be mindful of that. And the fact that there's always a new face to replace older ones. It's quite a temperamental industry. So always have something else going for you that's always going to make you feel internally more valued, because this industry definitely makes you question yourself a lot, who you are, and you always have to have something that makes you feel, actually, I've got this about me. So this beauty side of things is not everything I do. Yes, focus more on the purpose rather than the beauty, especially in pageantry now. Pageantry is very fast changing. There is no actual judgment category which is purely on beauty anymore. It's all about the purpose, and it's all about being holistic, really. So I always say that beauty fades with time, but the purpose doesn't. And the message of Miss England and Miss World this year, and for the forthcoming many, many years to come, is going to be beauty with a purpose. So focus on your purpose and have your purpose intact. Beauty will come with it. You'll have plenty of people that will be approaching you to sort you out and make you beautiful.
That's absolutely wonderful. How can people get hold of you, Bhasha? What's the best way?
Instagram's the best way for me. You can reach out to me, ask me any questions, advice. My handle is Bhasha05. That's B for Bravo, HASHA05. And you can just follow me on Instagram. Facebook's good as well, but we're in the digital age, so Instagram's the best.
Thank you so much, Bhasha.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this installment of the Surgical Spirit podcast. For all the latest in the world of surgical spirit, don't forget to follow on Twitter at The Third Eye Doc and catch me on Facebook at the page The Third Eye Doctor. You can visit the website at www.thethirdeyedoctor.co.uk for more information on the work that I do. And please send us feedback and questions and suggestions for the podcast. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. I've been Dr. Haidar Al-Hakim, and I'll see you next time.